Don't forget to check out the Hockey Podcast Network's newest affiliate, NHLShop.com. That's right, the official NHL merchandise page. Right now, they're giving 20% off orders over $25 with code NHLICE25. Also, if you use our link that we're going to tweet out after this episode, you can help support us and the other hosts at the Hockey Podcast Network.
This is the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk on every team in the NHL.
Welcome to Offside by a Mile, the podcast for anything and everything Colorado Avalanche, and the official Avs podcast for the Hockey Podcast Network. Well, welcome to another episode of the Offside by a Mile podcast. I'm going crazy, Jared.
Yeah.
I'm starting to believe John Scott rumors.
Holy shite.
I mean, like, I know he did this to fire up the internet. But what if?
Maybe there's a grain of truth.
But what if?
Maybe.
Is it like when somebody who gets really drunk like starts making fun of someone or like getting mad at somebody, like
the truth comes out?
The truth, like, it comes from the truth. Like, maybe it is real. Maybe these guys are planning on getting into camps for June 1st. Maybe we're like a month away from the potential of real hockey being on its way back. Like, is that possible? Can that be real?
Even just thinking about that makes me all tingly. Gives me the butterflies.
I need a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, that's the thing too, right? That's why, that's what I just want some word of what's going on.
And
what do we got here?
Because you see John Scott tweet that June 1st players camps may open.
Yeah.
And then you also hear about the NHL's plans to use neutral site arenas to get the NHL back. And then you see the questions to Bill Daly about what happens if somebody gets corona when they go back and stuff like this. And you're starting to see the puzzle pieces kind of aligning.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is real. Again, as I tweeted, I'm not holding my breath. But it's
something.
It's a ray of hope.
Yeah,
it's a chance for things to get better.
Like, how far are we into this now? I've lost all my concept of time. I don't have a concept of time.
7 weeks into?
Is it actually? I guess it is probably that long. What was it, March 12th or?
Yeah, like I started working from home from oh my God, English.
Do you speak it?
Working from home on March 16th. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, it's been
it's
well
been a month
over
and
a month.
Half. Yeah, like it's been 6 weeks at least for me working from home.
It's nutty.
So it's just like, that's crazy to begin with. And then I think hockey ended a little bit before that.
Yeah. I think it was March 11th or
something
12th.
like that. Yeah, it's just like
right around there. Yeah, man, it's starting to get to a point where I can't even. I just can't even.
I can only spitball about stuff for so long.
I know, right? It's just like racking the memory, and it's funny because like we've talked to, as everybody knows, like almost every Central host, and even it's so funny just trying to think about the season now. It feels like it's a year ago.
It feels like we're in the middle of August.
Yeah, it feels like,
or like maybe even the middle of September with camps around the corner,
yeah.
And like it feels like we've had 3 months of summertime. And it's been 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's an odd feeling.
Cool.
And it's unheard of.
But yeah, like you said, the final guest from the Central Division,
final stop,
is coming up here in a minute. But I really hope hockey comes back. Florida is crazy, and they've opened up sports as an essential service, so sports are starting there, which is insane.
Don't know how to feel about that.
I guess we'll see what happens there, and we'll see if it's a problem. And if it's not, then maybe it just gives the NHL a green light to start organizing. That's another thing too to think, and I haven't thought about it yet, but like I'm sure while the NHL is organizing their return to hockey, I'm sure the NBA is doing the same thing. So I'm sure they're coordinating with them as well.
Yeah,
so that's got to be that's got to be difficult.
Well, because if they do something along the lines of what they've kind of talked about with certain cities being kind of the hub for that division, would also have to take into account the NBA, which would have to, find their cities.
Yeah, right, because you can't do the both at the same time.
Yeah,
That's not
which
gonna work.
I guess, there's lots of situations where there aren't same city teams that they could do.
Right, like Edmonton, like that's obviously not a problem. Minnesota, you have the Timberwolves, so that, that's a thought.
I definitely feel like Edmonton is like probably the best spot.
I bet you Edmonton's a guarantee for the Pacific.
Because we live in Calgary. Calgary's definitely doing a hell of a lot worse than Edmonton is.
Somebody brought this to my attention. The 4 worst hit cities in Canada are the 4 cities that left their international airports open.
Exactly right.
And it's just like
not really a surprise.
That's exactly why Calgary's getting hit harder than Edmonton. Mm-hmm. So it totally makes sense to send it to there is as much as I hate Edmonton, as normal Calgarians do.
Yeah.
There is no reason not to have it in Edmonton.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I saw Jermaine Franklin, who's the reporter for TSN for Calgary, tweet something like, hopefully Calgary gets consideration. Dude, no, it does not make any sense to have it here.
Yeah,
They're not, like, and I understand, you don't need a nice building to play in right now. You don't need a building that can, but why not?
Yeah, why, if you have the option, take the nicer building. And they have... It's just way better set up.
I'm sure they have state of the the HVAC system in that building, state of the art too, and stuff like that. Like they can probably set it up to be like a extra higher tech filtration and stuff like that.
And they got like hotels and stuff that are right there, right? Yeah. It's not like you come to Calgary to the Saddle Dome. There's like fucking nothing around it.
Yeah, the Saddle Dome is
maybe the Deerfoot casino or whatever.
Yeah. Ooh,
but
that's a really nice hotel.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. It's like
so like stuff like that. I know. People have been trying to push Denver. I don't know if we'll see that. It doesn't really seem like Denver's an option. But at the same time, like some of the 12 arenas or like the 12 cities that are on the list, like we get into, but I think Toronto's insane. Like,
yeah, that one's a little odd too.
It seems very odd. Apparently, Tom coming up brings up Atlanta, which is hilarious.
Right.
That would be so funny. Like, do their Zambonis even run? Like, do they still have them? You would think they would have sold those off.
They're just
at the bar
in stasis here.
It's just so weird.
Yeah.
It would just be so funny. Be like, return to Atlanta for some hockey. Like, that Atlanta Thrashers Twitter account that, like, tweets once in a while? They would be all over that. It would be so funny.
That would be meme city, dude.
That would be really funny.
And it would be just so funny. I can just see it now. I'd just be like, well, there's no fans here. Nothing's different. Like, still the same old Atlanta hockey here.
Yeah, that would be. I need it for the memes. Just please.
I mean, it feels like that's actually maybe a possibility too, which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It'd be so weird.
We're just kind of sitting here waiting for that word, that news.
Also, public service announcement: don't inject disinfectant into your veins or sniff it or anything like that. It's not going to fix you.
Probably won't help.
It's the imagine 2 years ago when Tide Pods were a thing.
Oh man!
Imagine if the president was like, "You should try these things. They really clean out your insides."
Yeah.
That is like the equivalent to where we're at. It's just the world is a strange place, and I don't understand. I don't want to get political, but it was funny.
It was super funny.
It was super funny, and it's just I need people not to take it seriously.
I like how like Clorox and stuff like came out like
had to like
don't do this, okay?
God,
as you can see like on the bottle, it's poisonous.
It's not for ingestion.
Not cure COVID.
Another thing, the Kroenke Sports and Entertainment created the COVID relief fund.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they put in $500,000, and they were trying to raise funds to $1 million or something like that to help with relief and help pay for bills and stuff like that. So that's fantastic news for Denver and area and stuff like that, and for people that are working for KSE and stuff like that. So that's great. That's great news.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that's basically your hockey news.
Yeah. Hockey update. There you go. Courtesy of John Scott.
Courtesy of John Scott.
Shout out.
Yeah. So I mean, if you follow our Twitter account, you've already seen that. You kind of saw some of the discussion we had on the tweet. But yeah, it's an interesting time right now. But the Across the Quarantine this week, like was said, is the Blue Notes pod. Our last, but definitely not least, opponent in the Central Division that we are all really looking forward to some playoff hockey against.
Yeah.
As usual.
Which feels like an almost inevitable series if it comes back.
As usual, this week's Across the Quarantine is brought to you by Manscaped. The THPN code's still active. 20% off free shipping. All that good jazz.
Take care of them balls.
Jared, take care of your face.
No, not yet. Man, it's in another transformation stage here.
The mustache is
flavor
saver territory.
This is the longest I've ever had my mustache because, man, I don't know if anybody grows out mustaches, but they got to be the most annoying thing on the face that I've ever felt.
Yeah, dude.
So
you can see it, like the flavor saver is there.
Oh, it's there. Trust me, it happens every time I eat, and I'm just like, oh, I'm messy.
Delicious.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I had a friend of mine actually Snapchat me this morning. He shaved his head into a mohawk.
Oh yeah.
So there's that.
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah. I think I would just go straight buzz cut.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd leave the mustache or the mustache.
Oh yeah, right. We were talking about haircuts last week.
Yeah,
right.
We were talking about haircuts. Right. I can't. Oh, I was watching Gran Torino last night at my dad's house.
Oh yeah.
And they went at the barbershop scene. I'm like, man, what I would give for a haircut right now. Ugh. It's not even that long, and I'm just like, oh, I fucking hate it.
You're not going to go your brother's direction and grow it right out?
No.
Could you imagine Tyler with long-ass hair? Have you
God.
ever had long hair?
No.
Yeah? Yeah, you've always had short hair.
I hate, man. When it starts like
mullet.
Oh, that would be amazing. Once it starts touching my ears, I get really annoyed.
Game over.
By it. Mullet, the mullet, I could definitely live with a mullet.
The sides,
yeah,
get it out of the ears.
Yeah, just get it off the ears. Oh my god. Not even don't even go mullet. Just literally shave one strip around my ear and then call it a day.
Yeah, it's like a intermediate mohawk.
Yeah, it's a mohawk. It's just really wide.
Really wide. A wide hawk. Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, if you need said trimmer, Manscaped's got you covered.
Mm-hmm.
If you just need beard oil, like Jared, they got that too. But yeah, so without further ado, Tom and his new co-host, not so new, but new to us, new co-host Wags is on deck. Well, this week's Across the Quarantine. I haven't done that for a while. Finally, at long last, our last central guest of, I don't know, this quarantine so far. Tom and Wags from the Blue Notes pod. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys as well. Good to see you guys doing well, despite, as you mentioned, the quarantine. It's just
it's quite a time right now.
It's one of the only things we can do is podcast right now, really.
It's how we feel the most normal, that's for sure.
Yeah, unless you're my colleague Wags, who actually does have to go into work and gets to be up close and personal with some chicken every day. So
lucky
chicken
guy.
Is good to eat. It's not so much fun to bread for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, I could imagine. That sounds awful. Super awful. Yeah, we've obviously wanted to talk to you guys for a while. Right about now would be nice to be having an Avs in St. Louis series. So obviously we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah.
How much do you miss hockey right now? Because I'm believing John Scott rumors now. So
that's how crazy we've gotten here.
Well, the uncontrollable sobbing hasn't started quite yet.
Okay.
But it feels like it's been a slow descent towards that right now. Now it's just kind of a feeling of loneliness right now. Just it's like I feel my sport has abandoned me. And now, I'm just left here to talk about it and do fun bracketology with my partner here, Wags.
Fair.
At least
yeah.
the one thing we got going for us right now is the fact that they're replaying the Stanley Cup Finals, and we actually win it this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
pretty
gotta
nice.
be a cool feeling for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, right here on Channel 5 locally, they're going to replay Game 7. So here about probably within the next, I think it's like the next 10 minutes actually. So
We
I might be monitoring off camera here.
up
Getting
here
a little
in,
nostalgia up in your system.
up here in Canada land, we got the rerun of the Raptors winning the NBA. So
Right.
we got the same feels, sorta. Not quite as
Well,
good though.
Yeah, because I guess you don't have a Stanley Cup to replay from the last 20 years or so.
It's been a while for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the Avs rerun for the Stanley Cup, and I can't even. My brain's not
It was
working.
2001.
Yeah, 2001.
I think they replayed that one.
Yeah, but that one got done and over with like 3 weeks ago, so it's been.
Yeah,
Quiet.
we haven't really had too much Avalanche hockey to watch lately. I was watching I think it was Red Wings and Toronto '93 Stanley Cup series or one of the series. I think it was semifinals. Always fun to just look back at some old time hockey.
Yeah,
It is,
I
but it's
wonder
not
if
the
you-
same.
I
Yeah.
wonder if you'd get desperate enough in Denver to start replaying old Nordiques games. Try to bring that nostalgia. And although the problem is Quebec was never that good up until they moved to Colorado.
Yeah,
This is
pretty
true.
much, right? Yeah, first
Yeah.
year they moved there, wasn't it? It was '96,
Pretty much,
right?
yeah. It was the year that
Yeah.
they moved. It was unreal. It'd be like Ottawa moving and then winning a Stanley Cup in their first year. In their new city. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those scenarios that's just kind of mind-boggling. It almost reminds me of just like Vegas going to the Cup final, and you're just like, what the hell's going on here?
This can't
First
be
year in the
happening.
league? Get out of here, man.
Yeah, speaking of Vegas, I saw a report in The Athletic that came out just today that it's being considered as one of the host cities for if the NHL season does resume. In fact, it's actually being considered as a centralized site, I guess, according to The Athletic.
Mm.
Minnesota, Edmonton, Toronto, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Dallas, among the 12 cities apparently that are being vetted right now.
Toronto
feel-
confuses me a lot.
Yeah. Why go into Toronto in that beehive?
Like A, it's the biggest city in Canada, and B, it's probably the hardest hit city by COVID. So why would you go? It doesn't make any sense to me, but I don't know. It's Bettman.
The only thing I can think of when it comes to Toronto is the fact that they hosted the World Cup of Hockey, and they have the facilities and the ability to host multiple teams and play multiple games in that time frame, because they're talking about 3 games a day.
Yeah.
That would be the only reason I could see them talking about Toronto. The one name that got thrown out, which was really funny and probably makes people in Atlanta hurt, is Atlanta was a spot that was mentioned as, hey, we got players skating down here. Why not use Atlanta? And it's like, come on,
That
Flames
would
and
be-
Thrashers fans.
That would be amazing.
All 5 of them?
That'd be really funny, actually, to go to a city that doesn't have any hockey. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's not like there's fans going, but it just would be really funny to go to Atlanta, of all places.
or like go play hockey in San Antonio or something.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, there's hockey in San Antonio.
Well, yeah, but we don't care about them anymore because
true. That's true.
because they're moving to Henderson. And yeah, freaking Vegas bought our affiliate out from under us.
Right.
Because, yeah, you guys were sharing, right?
We did we shared with the Avalanche for about a year or two, and then we took exclusive ownership of the Rampage. We had a 5-year deal with them. We had just come off a bad marriage with the Chicago Wolves, who then became the affiliates of Vegas. And
Right.
so they kind of kicked us out of Chicago. And then we were thinking, oh, great, we finally got stability. San Antonio, we have a good business partnership between the Blues and the Rampage. And then all of a sudden, Vegas comes in and buys the damn team and
Interesting
left
move.
us out again. We're with Springfield now. We're going to start with the Springfield Thunderbirds up in Massachusetts, and we'll see how it goes. It's a 5-year deal, which I've seen 5-year deals before, so we'll see if it actually lasts the full 5 this time.
Yeah, it's something we don't have to deal with here, right? Like, and me personally, in my normal hockey fandom in Toronto, like, Toronto Leafs, the Maple Leafs, and the Marlies, and then you got Colorado and the Eagles, and it's just like don't have to worry about AHL teams ever.
No, exactly, and you know those kind of arrangements kind of had fans here kind of hoping that whatever team that the Blues would link up with would eventually move to Kansas City and be the affiliate.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think that's still a pipe dream for many just because of geography and you know, I mean, there's kind of a bromance going on between the Chiefs and the Blues. You know, just that kind of started during the playoffs last year when Pat Mahomes came over and watched the Stanley Cup Finals. But yeah, it's not that easy to move an AHL team as people think. I mean, there's a finite number of teams, and it's just not easy. It's kind of complicated.
It seems more like teams get upgraded or downgraded rather than moved. When it comes to
like
AHL
in the case of the Eagles, I mean the Eagles they just won the ECHL title and then it's like up to AHL you go.
And then like for the Flames, like they had Abbotsford, they had Adirondack, they had so many different farm teams over the years too.
Yep.
That's the thing with the AHL, right? Because a lot of the time it's a place for you to sink a bunch of money into.
Yeah, which is, you know, the Blues dealt with that for many years with the Peoria Rivermen, and they decided that, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore. So they sold it to the Canucks, and then they got moved away, and, you know, we know what happened there. And that was the whole reason why they went with the Wolves, because, you know, it didn't cost the Blues anything to link up with them. It was just purely, this is a place where we can deposit our players.
Yeah.
And
do you want some good players? Because we can give you some.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, the weird thing with the Chicago Wolves was, I mean, we also still controlled the coaching staff. That's where Craig Berube, we had him stashed there before he, you know, took over from Mike Yeo. The Wolves are a weird team because they actually care about winning the AHL, you know, trophy, whatever it is at the end of the year. And so they'll actually prioritize their own veteran players over the players that the Blues would send them. You know, they didn't care about developing prospects. They wanted titles for whatever that was worth. You know, king of the molehills.
Yeah.
You know, good for them. You know, now they're going to be Florida's problem. So.
Oh, they're with Florida now.
Yeah, Florida had Springfield, and then I think the deal is that like Florida's GM and Chicago's GM were like pretty tight, so they shifted over to Chicago. Chicago was the Vegas affiliate. Now they're taking the Rampage. And then so to complete this kind of weird hexagon, you know, trade here, the Blues are taking Florida's affiliate in Springfield. So
gotcha. It's
confusing.
Yeah.
Silly season has started already.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't even talked about the signings that Army made last week.
That's true. What
pandemic?
Yeah, of all the teams in the NHL that are basically, you know, stored away and doing nothing, that's not the St. Louis Blues.
No. I think Army, he knows something that we don't.
So anyway, you might as well talk about the signings then. Go for it.
Well, yeah. So the Blues ended up re-signing Sammy Blais, 2 years, $1.5 million per. That's pretty reasonable. They re-signed Mackenzie McEachern, who's a fourth line, you know, hitter, grindy guy. Really endeared himself in the past couple of years. He's signed for like a $900,000 deal. But the big one, and the one that really got Blues fans up in a tizzy wags, was Marco Scandella. You know, signing for 4 years, $13.1 million. That's a $2.75 million per year cap hit. And Wags, you witnessed it as much as I did, how Blues fans are kind of freaking out over that. But I think it was for wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, they're freaking out because it's essentially taking money away from Alex Pietrangelo, who I know fans in Toronto are sitting there going, yes, here he comes. But really, he is essentially taking over the money that Bouwmeester was making here the last couple of years, a slight increase in that amount. But Bouwmeester was going to come off the books anyway, and you're going to find ways to fit in. And Army was essentially building this team to see what he had and then who he had to move in order to keep Alex Pietrangelo here. You know, signing a guy like McEachern and Blais allows you to play around and do something if you have the ability to get rid of an Alex Steen or a Tyler Bozak or some of those guys where you've got replacements already on staff to fill and guys that have played and you know what they're all about. And if you're able to move those guys and free up the money for Alex Pietrangelo, then that's what he's trying to do. I was talking to somebody today, and I said, look, everybody's freaking out about Alex Pietrangelo not getting signed yet. This season's not officially over.
Yeah.
Until this season is officially over, I don't think you see Alex Pietrangelo signing or the Blues doing that. I think you got to wait for this thing to just finally settle and know where you're heading. Because if this team doesn't get a chance to defend its title and Alex leaves, what's he accomplished? But if he can come back next year and win a second title, which I think he wants to do, then you might see him sign here with the Blues, even if it's for a smaller amount of money.
Yeah, it's got to be really weird. We've kind of talked about it for guys that are looking at big money like Taylor Hall and stuff like that for free agent deals. It's got to be really strange if you're one of those guys, especially like Pietrangelo, who's just like our Avs, like really poised to make a good deep run into the Cup final or Cup playoffs, right? And then at the end of that, he's looking at whether he's re-signing with St. Louis or moving on.
Yeah, and he talked to Pierre LeBrun about that a little bit last week in The Athletic, and he basically stated that, you know, he's looking for the best place for him and his family. And I know he's pretty deeply rooted here in St. Louis just in general. And I think a lot of fans are kind of thinking if he doesn't go to Toronto, he's probably staying in St. Louis. And he's got everything he wants here. He's got his family here. His kids are he'll keep his kids in the same schools. And he gets to play for not just the same teammates that he knows and that look up to him as a captain, but also he is playing for a Stanley Cup caliber team as it is right now. So, as far as, the economics goes, I mean, with this pandemic and the salary cap kind of staying the way it is, I think there's some hope that Pietrangelo takes a small bridge deal, maybe a year, 2 years, and then sees, what things are like coming out of it. I know it won't be the 8-year deal that he's kind of dreaming about as a 30-year-old, that would carry him out the rest of his career.
Yeah.
But it may be the way to maximize his value at this point.
I just find it so hard to compute the numbers for him in Toronto.
I don't know how you do it unless you have John Tavares disappear under mysterious circumstances. I mean, it's seriously, it just they don't have any. They have to pay him with actual money.
Yeah, right. That's the thing, and with the cap not going anywhere, the Leafs are going to be struggling to begin with.
Yeah.
Oh, they were going to struggle to begin with, and then it's just now it's just the vice grips have been put on them. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting situation to follow the next year or two. I mean, because you're going to have a very top-heavy team with 4 very good, albeit individually minded good players, and you're going to have the Toronto Marlies, for your bottom 6 pretty much.
Yeah. It's going to be like that for the next 4 years probably.
Yeah, and I know the Blackhawks kind of made it work because they had a lot of for a lot of years during their run, it seemed like they had to purge their entire bottom 6 every year just because it was time for those guys to finally get paid.
Yeah, so the biggest difference though is they had Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook on the back end.
Exactly.
And if the Leafs go for Pietrangelo, they still only have one of those quote unquote top 2 guys like Chicago.
I mean, they won't have Cody Ceci, which depending on who you talk to might be an improvement. So.
Yeah, some days it's an improvement for sure. I can speak from experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I like you said, right, with Pietrangelo if it's either Toronto or St. Louis, it's St. Louis. With the cap being flat, unless they trade out like William Nylander, there's just no room.
Well, Nylander would probably be the most attractive just because
100%.
of his cap hit.
He kind of had the Draisaitl year where he went from being overpaid to holy shit, maybe this is a really good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what he gets in a trade. The Blues, to get Pietrangelo back, though, they have to make their own, tough decisions with the cap as well. Because with the Scandella deal, the on the surface, the numbers are, I think the Blues would have about 3.5-4 million wags, as it stands right now. That's not going to be enough. So you're looking at, maybe do you capitalize on Jake Allen's good year and you trade him away?
I was going to say, your favorite guy going out the door?
Well, you know what? I'll say this for Jake. He had a good year. He
did.
He was when Bennington was faltering. I mean, I think there were times this year when Bennington was just exhausted because they kind of rode him a little hard this year because they didn't know what they had now. But once they finally figured out that, hey, Jake Allen's, confidence is back, he's a good goaltender, they started rotating him more. Allen makes 4.35 mil. He's had a good year. I got to think there's someone out there that would probably take him.
Oh, someone would mistakenly take him. Yes, definitely.
Well, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that's the thing when you're talking about getting rid of these guys is that someone's got to take them. A lot of people have been saying, oh, well, just trade Tyler Bozak. He makes $5 million for one more year. He's a third liner for you, and he doesn't have any trade restrictions whatsoever. Well, sure, but someone's got to take him. That's the thing. And Bozak he played at times Selke level defense earlier in the season for the Blues. I mean,
That
he's a
doesn't
good
sound
teammate.
right.
Yeah, he was really good in his own end.
That doesn't sound possible at all.
Yeah, it was possible. I mean, but the thing is, to your point, kind of there, Tyler, it's still Tyler Bozak.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
who's going to win and take that $5 million contract for one more year? And then the only other candidate really you have is Alex Steen, who is, he makes 5.75 mil. He's been a good servant of the team. He's been really beneficial for guys like Sundqvist and Barbashev. But if you buy him out now, you only save about a third because he's over 35.
Yeah, I saw that the Alexander Steen buyout was trending on Cat Friendly.
Yeah. Now me and Wags have been kind of playing around with the idea of what if the NHL gives teams like one amnesty buyout.
Yeah, we talked about that with Isha last week. Yeah.
Yeah, where they can just launch a contract into the sun and there's no penalty. And I was thinking about that for Steen, but then me and Wags got to talking. It's like, why not Justin Falk?
I remember we had this conversation last time we talked.
That's right.
I was a lot more
the Justin Falk deal.
I was a lot more positive about Justin Falk.
Yes, you were.
Things changed.
Yeah, he hasn't really done a whole lot of anything this year, right?
No, he is like a chia pet that doesn't grow. I mean,
really useful.
That's pretty,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what he is right now. He's a really expensive chia pet. And he's gonna be a poison pill. So I think if there's any way that Armstrong can get his contract off the books, he would. He's got a no trade. So like, unless he gets an amnesty deal,
he's not going anywhere.
You're looking at basically, begging Seattle to take him in the expansion draft.
I don't know if you have to beg Seattle to take him, though, because Ron Francis is the GM of Seattle. Ron Francis is the guy that drafted Justin Falk. He's true. A big fan of Justin Falk. Yes, it may take a little convincing. It may take a first-round draft pick or something of that ilk.
I bet you he'll probably try and play the card of, I don't want him, but he'd probably happily take him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he'll probably be like,
what are you going to do for me, though?
Yeah, but you got to give me, like, a second-round pick or something.
Right.
And then I'll take him.
Oh, yeah.
And then you run into the bank with it.
If this is like a second-round pick and a prospect, fine. Just take him.
Yeah.
Get him out of our lives.
It goes back to that trade and how weird it was. And everybody who back then was jumping on the fact that, like, why would you make this trade when Pietrangelo needs money? And then, like, why make the trade and sign the guy when you know you got to pay Pietrangelo? And clearly Pietrangelo is the better defenseman.
Well, not only that, but they made the deal before re-signing Braden Shen as well.
That too.
And that's another big contract they got to deal with. Although I think he's worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
Falk. I mean, I think Armstrong. I think just very simple. I think Armstrong. He bought a lemon. At the dealership. Falk did not come as advertised. He didn't fit in with the system at all. And it just one of those. It just didn't work out.
I'm the conspiracy theorist of the group. And I think all this was planned. I think this is one of those things that Army was trying to strike while the iron was hot. He was going to get a guy in Justin Falk who he could bring in and supplement a Stanley Cup winning team. Joel Edmondson didn't play every single game of the Stanley Cup Finals. No. So if you're able to get,
the doghouse.
He was, and if you could get a guy of Falk's caliber, a guy that was a perennial all-star, a good power play producer, and you were able to get him essentially for Joel Edmondson, I think Army was already thinking ahead. And yes, the contract extension was a surprise.
Yeah, that's
But-
the thing that's the thing that makes the trade really hard. I think you're right. I think Falk for Edmondson is a good trade. It's
Yeah,
the
and
the
it's the
extension that he
signing.
got
The
after. You're like,
extension was gotta
oh
be-
man, how do you do that?
But like I said, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I know collusion isn't something that people do.
Yeah.
But
Just like
I
never
gotta- I
happens
gotta-
in the NBA.
never. I got to
Never.
think that Ron Francis knew he wasn't going to be able to trade with Carolina, obviously, with the way things happened in his departure there, that he needed an intermediary to get Justin Falk. Because I think he's a guy that was targeted by him at the very beginning of him being the GM. So I'm sure there might have been a bug put into Armstrong's ear by a guy from Francis's group saying, hey, look, you bring him in, you sign him long term. We'll take him off your hands in the draft. And yes, we may still have to pay for it in the
That's
form of a pick and a
spicy.
prospect.
But
That's
spicy.
a long-term
Yeah.
conspiracy theory.
That's
like
just like I am definitely gonna leave that in the memory bank because I think he might. I think
Yeah,
he,
that'll
I think
stick.
he might have something.
Yeah.
It's just 2020, 2021 is going to be so hard for the St. Louis Blues because of that. And it's like, if you still have to pay to get a guy like Falk out of your room or out of your contract base, that is a really tough pill to swallow to give yourself such a handcuffing for next year.
Yeah, it is. It is, and like I said, I think this is just something that did not go as planned. You know, I think
Oof, that's crazy.
I don't know if I believe in Wag's diabolical, backroom hustle that was going on there. It would be nice if it happened, though. I mean, at this point, but still, though, you're pretty much you in that scenario, you're still talking about giving up a Joel Edmondson, who may have been on the way out anyway, a decent prospect in Dominic Bach that went to Carolina. He's kind of a lottery ticket, though, and some aren't sure if he'll ever even make it. And then you're looking at giving up someone to get Falk off your hands. I mean, I don't see how the Blues necessarily win in this scenario, but maybe maybe there is some truth to the fact that, hey, Falk is a Francis guy, per se.
Mhm.
Francis drafted him. Maybe there's something sentimental there that the Blues can take.
I also want to see what happens with the no trade clause when it comes to expansion draft time. Like, what if Falk just screws you and says, actually, no.
Well, no, I think with the Vegas draft, the deal was if players had a no trade, they could still get picked.
It was the
But
no
if,
movement,
but,
I
but if
think.
they had a
Okay.
no movement, then they couldn't. Yeah.
There was just so much going on in that expansion draft that I forget little things like that.
Yeah, and I'm really kind of curious to see what Seattle is going to have an opportunity to do in this draft, especially because I don't know if they're necessarily going to get the team that Vegas got
No.
starting out, because I think
Definitely
there are GMs now that are going to be pretty keen to, okay, this is how McPhee hustled us, with Vegas by getting all those first round picks.
Florida's
and,
not going to trade 2/3 of a first line either.
No, exactly not. I still don't understand that one. Oh man, that set that franchise. That honestly, I think that set that franchise back a year.
Probably,
honestly.
at least.
Yeah.
At least that was such a horrible deal.
It's
That's
so
pretty
I
silly.
don't know. I don't know if Seattle will get those kind of opportunities. I still think they have a chance to field a pretty good roster, though, starting out.
I think they'll be fine. They're definitely not going to the Cup final. That's
Hopefully not.
No. No.
Don't
But
need
yeah.
another West team coming in first year and
Yeah.
doing that crap.
But yeah, back to like the buyout idea. I don't think we're going to see it just because I don't think the cap's going to go down. I think that would have been an option if the cap went down. I don't think that'll be an option if it doesn't. But it is fun to think about having.
I have heard though that the $81.5 million might be locked in for a couple of years.
Yeah, I believe that might be right. Too.
Yeah. So so we'll see. It from a Blues fan's point of view, that would have incentive, to get this type of buyout for one of their guys. For us, it's a pipe dream, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
There's so much that needs to be resolved because
really
of this
nice.
pandemic.
It's really nice to be an Avs fan and not have to worry about any of that garbage right now.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see in 4 years. I'm sure we'll have one.
I'll say this for the Avs. The Avs have spent their money very wisely.
No, it's because Kroenke won't let him spend it.
That and the fact that they were, historically bad like 4 seasons ago.
True.
Yeah.
No, we just needed a chance to beat on the.
I know. The Kroenke. To be honest, I was waiting for Kroenke not to pay the employees while COVID was happening.
Yeah, I'm sure he was one of the last to decide to do that.
Well, technically, doesn't his son run the team?
His son, quote unquote. Yeah, the whole NFL owner thing. Yeah, it's yeah. Come on,
you guys, you were allowed to be salty because I would be salty if they moved my team away too.
I'll put it this way: the fact that LA is tanking, the fact that the stadium that he's building is wildly over budget and may not even be completed by the time the NFL season starts, I'm okay. I'm getting back to being better.
Yeah, it does help. It does help to know that Stan Kroenke might lose a couple $1 million a day. It's
no, not million, but billion.
Billions. Yes, I'll take that. I will take that to the bank, literally. Screw that guy.
So kind of where we started, the Avs versus St. Louis in the playoffs, because we know we want it. We know we want to see it. Well, I don't know. I don't know if the Blues want to see it.
Remind me how these teams did in the regular season.
I was just gonna say I don't know if the Avs won it.
I'd
honestly.
say it's 2-2 home. I believe the home teams won every game.
Yeah, and
Actually,
I just remember that Jordan Binnington probably does not want to play in Denver ever again.
Yeah.
Because if I recall, in both games in Denver, he got ran.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not good for him.
No, it was not. It was one of the rare speed bumps in his run. By the way, did you see the Team Canada projections for 2022?
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, and the starting goalie would be Jordan Binnington. That is just mind-blowing. Over Carey Price, the $10 million man.
Well, I mean, when you don't stop the puck, it's hard to be the best goalie in the country.
That's true.
And I mean,
that's true.
I guess if you give it 2 years too.
I still believe Carey Price is the best goalie, probably in the NHL.
When he's healthy.
Well, healthy, and he just needs, some help on a nightly basis, opposed to what he gets in Montreal.
Well, yeah. It seems like Montreal has done their damnedest to make sure he doesn't have a defense in front of him.
That's what it seems like.
Pretty much.
They're trying to make his life hard.
Yeah. Well, they're like, you're getting $10 million, so stop the puck.
Earn it.
That's our defensive funding. Sorry.
Connor McDavid makes 12.5 and scores 130 points, so you should be able to do the same equivalent in net.
Gosh, Carey. Gosh.
Figure it out.
Sacre Bleu. No, but as far as like an Avs Blues playoffs, I mean, it would be one of the matchups that I would want.
As a fan, 100%.
As a fan, as a guy that enjoys good hockey, I know it would be a fun romp. It would probably be a long series. I would probably lose years off my life, like I did with the Dallas series last year.
Yep.
Which I still have PTSD over. And that's a team that I also was kind of, as much as I would want the Avs, I would not want the Stars. Just for that very reason.
The Stars are a tricky team.
Well,
they are. Yeah, and Bishop in the playoffs is a freaking demon.
I was gonna say, if we want to go back to how did things go during the regular season for the Avalanche? They couldn't beat the Stars to save their life.
Yeah,
and most likely that's the first round. So that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get Bishop standing on his head, and that's a scary situation. Especially for like the Avs who have the firepower, and I guess, St. Louis does have quite a bit of firepower as well, but once you get stuck in that rut and you just can't beat a goalie, it's nervous. Nerve-wracking.
Bishop is a cheat code when he's on.
He pretty much is.
Yeah.
I mean, his Game 7 performance in that double overtime game was just one for the ages. I mean, especially because you want to talk about leaving a goalie hang out to dry. The Stars pretty much, they didn't have a shot, I think, for about a period and a half.
Yeah, I remember us watching it and laughing about that. We're like, what the hell's happening?
And that was the thing. I mean, it was mind-boggling because the Stars weren't a bad offensive team. It just, they hit a rut themselves, and then it was just kind of like, okay, it's okay. Ben Bishop will just bail us out. And he did for about, 5 periods.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he kind of did that a lot this season for them too, and I guess you could throw Khudobin in there as well.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
because some of the bigger players like Sagan, Ben were like struggling
Awful.
to score, right? And even Radulov at times as well.
Yeah, we
Not
had
looking
Mike,
good at all.
We had Michael on the podcast, and he's like, the only guy scoring is
Hey, what's his name? Oh my gosh.
wow, good.
Oh, Rupe?
Yes,
Rupe
Hintz. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like
You're like, what? Hintz is the only one scoring.
we pay Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn like millions and millions of dollars, and they're playing like bums. All right, sweet.
By the way, I'm pretty sure that Michael Farley, if he doesn't have a poster of Rupe Hintz in his bedroom, it's probably coming because Rupe Hintz is number one in Michael Farley's heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. You've seen Hockey Trolls Polly Cupcakes cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Farley needs one of those at Rupe Hintz
Yeah.
to record
yeah.
with. Yeah.
Farley was one of my first guests ever on Blue Notes, and he warned me like in advance. I asked him, "What's the one player that we need to watch out for?" And I couldn't even finish the sentence, and he said Rupe Hintz.
Yeah, I think he had the exact same sentence to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminds me, Hintz reminds me of just that pest on every team that you don't like, a Jordan Tutu back in his Nashville days. Just a guy that doesn't seem like he has a whole lot of ability, but is always in a play, gets a timely goal here and there, and just bugs the shit out of you every time you play him. And you hate him so much, but you kind of want him on your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds about right.
Sean
Yeah,
Avery.
he's a kid that knows how to use his size. I mean, Rupe is kind of a bigger kid too, so not one you enjoy facing, that's for sure.
Another thing that's going to change drastically between the Blues and the Avalanche by the time playoffs roll around here. Tarasenko's back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
not
looking
only
forward
that-
to that.
And not only that, but this is a situation where Tarasenko isn't coming off like, maybe do we question, is he coming back too early?
Yeah.
No, he's rested. And this is like, if there's one small silver lining in all this bullshit, it is the fact that we've given Tarasenko like a couple extra months to like fully heal up.
Yeah. The
You know,
Avs
and
are
now-
definitely feeling the same.
Yeah, because you were without Rantanen for a while, right?
Without
Brandon
Rantanen,
McKinnon went
just got hurt right before the stoppage happened.
Who else? Burakovsky
Kadri,
was out.
Burakovsky,
Yeah.
it's
Grubauer.
It's just the list
Yeah.
was the Colorado ambulance were full.
Yeah, and
I'll say, I'm looking forward to seeing Tarasenko back on the ice again, but this season has kind of highlighted the fact that maybe he's a little overrated just because the team did so well without him.
That's a tough one.
I'm-
That's always the tough road to go down.
It's a slippery slope for sure, but it's just like, the whole thought process with the Blues, before last year was that as the Blues go, as Tarasenko goes, so does the Blues.
Okay.
He was the main offensive force behind the Blues for so many years. Now you have O'Reilly on the team. Now you have, Braden Sten stepping up the way that he has done, and others that are just kind of chipping in as well. And it's just kind of like, we've done all this without Tarasenko. In fact, we're doing the all-time Blues bracket on Blue Notes, a bracket of our own. And last week, Tarasenko as a number 2 seed took on Pierre Turgeon, a number 10 seed, former Avs Pierre Turgeon, by the way. Turgeon gave Tarasenko a run for his money. And that was, me and Wags made the case that maybe it should be Turgeon being Tarasenko, because Turgeon was over a point per game guy with the Blues. People forget how good he was in the late 90s and early 2000s. And Tarasenko, he didn't quite have the numbers when compared to a Pierre Turgeon. That was kind of the surprising thing. We didn't quite convince the voters of that, but it was just like, but it just for me, it just, in talking with Wags, it just kind of like, maybe this isn't Tarasenko's team anymore.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening when you looked at the statistics and the fact that Turgeon was a point-per-game player for the Blues and Tarasenko is not. 214 goals, 214 assists, and roughly the same amount of time. Actually, I think a little bit more time than Pierre Turgeon spent here with the Blues. For me, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, Pierre Turgeon was one of those guys that every night his name was in the score sheet. And Tarasenko's a guy that can take over games. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's the couple of hat trick games he had last year, game 1 against the Stars. Even he can take over a game. But there are times where he can disappear, and part of that is because of defensives keying in on him and literally taking him out of the game. Whereas Turgeon was never a guy that teams like keyed in on. They knew he was dangerous and he produced, but he wasn't a superstar when you had guys like Brett Hall and then at one point Wayne Gretzky on your team. They targeted other guys, so he had the ability. So that was another part of the argument probably, was that Tarasenko can take over games where Turgeon can't, but Turgeon produced, and it begs the question, now that you've got guys like O'Reilly and Schenn and a guy like Robert Thomas coming up, how much does Tarasenko need to be on this team? You're not going to get a guy that can shoot a puck from a pass in 0.2 seconds like Tarasenko does, but does that hurt the team or help the team? I still think it helps the team, but maybe in another year we might be singing a different tune.
And I think, having like an all-star, super offensive, talented player like Tarasenko kind of opens up a lot of the other guys that you kind of mentioned right there, because that takes a lot of the spotlight off those other guys. And even if you think about like David Perron this year, who's had a remarkably crazy, out of nowhere kind of year in a way, I think that bringing Tarasenko back obviously will even open up him a little bit more, and he's just had that confidence, all year long. So, I mean, as much as I think you guys are maybe onto something with that, it's also the fact that you bring those players back and it completely opens up and takes a lot of attention away from other players that you kind of mentioned, like Schenn, Perron too, O'Reilly, so. We
can say the same thing about the Avs this year, right? Like, we were without Landeskog for a long time. They just kept motoring along. Then Rantanen disappeared, and they kept motoring along. And until basically they lost Makar and or McKinnon is when it really started to stumble. I am never, ever going to say Landeskog's overrated. Like, not like a part they don't need, and Rantanen obviously is insane, right? And I'm not saying you guys are wrong. You guys, it's a case of having so many pieces. Eventually, somebody is overvalued, quote unquote. I'm not saying like they're overpaid. I'm saying that for what your team needs, maybe that value's misplaced.
Yeah, and that was the argument we made with Tarasenko, was when he was drafted, the Blues didn't have a whole lot. I mean, you had a young TJ Oshie, you had a young David Perron, you had a young Patrick Berglund, you had a captain in David Backes that was good, but he was a third-line center at best. So when they brought in Tarasenko, this Russian sniper, you didn't know what you were going to get. He was highly touted. Yeah, people are going to be like, this guy is it. This is the face of the organization. And he still is a face of the organization. He's a big St. Louis contributor. He's a big Cardinal fan. He's great for the city of St. Louis. We love him here. There's no question that we don't want to get rid of him.
Absolutely.
But it's just a matter of sitting there going, what is his value to the team? Now, is he the number one guy on here? Or is someone like a Ryan O'Reilly, who you guys know probably pretty decently as well, is he starting to supplant him as a number one guy because of what he does and what he means to the team? You talk about David Perron. Perron was okay. All of a sudden, Ryan O'Reilly gets here, and the work ethic that O'Reilly is putting in before and after practice, you're starting to see that permeate to other guys like a David Perron, who's now coming to practice early and staying late and working on things he's never worked on before, and you see the fruits of his labor.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah.
So does that mean Ryan O'Reilly supplanted Tarasenko as the number one guy on this team?
Well, yeah, and like you say that, right? It's hypothetical. If you had a choice between Ryan O'Reilly or Tarasenko, who you taking? Right? It's a very hard. That's a spicy argument.
For me, it's not that hard. I would take O'Reilly.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then when you talk about
all damn day,
when you talk about the historics, it's not easy.
Give you some perspective into how much I think O'Reilly's kind of taken over as the face of the franchise and how much fans love him here. So again, we're doing our all-time Blues bracket here, and we have our forward split between basically before Brett Hall arrived and after Brett Hall arrived. And so Ryan O'Reilly is obviously in the after, and he was a 12 seed in our bracket because he only had that one full year and then year and a half basically. And he took on David Backes in round 1, who was a 5 seed. And David Backes, longtime Blue, below. I mean, people loved him. David Backes here. I mean, he was a big time giver to the community. Blah blah blah. Ryan O'Reilly clapped him 87-13.
Recency bias helps a lot.
And then in the second round, he took on number 4 seeded Pavel Demitra, another fan favorite here in St. Louis. Rest in peace. Tragic what happened to him. O'Reilly clapped him 67 to 33%. So now it's kind of like it's like it kind of hit home for me, really, seeing that as just like what O'Reilly has meant to this franchise just in the past year and a half.
It's a case of, right, if you can put your team on your back and take them to the promised land, you will have statues everywhere, right? Like, and he will. I guarantee you, he will.
And a Conn Smythe performance, like that. It's
right?
like
it's.
You watch those playoffs last year.
You want to talk about a legacy? That's how you make a legacy, right?
For sure. That was a legendary run for him.
Toronto. Well, I think it even was even before that, and the fact that the team started off so poorly, and yet he was the one constant the entire year. For a guy coming off of the season he had before, where he essentially lost his love for hockey, coming to a new team. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Ryan O'Reilly at 28, 29, you're like, I think we've seen Ryan O'Reilly. And then all of a sudden last year happened, you're like, maybe we haven't.
See, for me, O'Reilly was always one of those underappreciated guys in the league just because he does a lot of the little things so well. I mean, he's fantastic at faceoffs. He plays Selke level defense. I mean, he won the damn Selke last year. And I think he brings a leadership quality, I think, that goes underappreciated. He was definitely underappreciated in Buffalo. I mean, he was treated as, just because, he wasn't Jack Eichel, he was treated kind of as a second-rate citizen there. Which is unfortunate. And I think just seeing O'Reilly, put it all together, he can score when he wants to, but he's definitely more of a playmaker. He makes players on his line better. That's the David Perron is the biggest example of that. Those two have an absolute sixth sense, with each other. It's just unreal. Like I think I told you guys, what happened at the Halloween party this year.
Yeah, they went as each other, right?
O'Reilly dressed up as David Perron, and Perron dressed up as Ryan O'Reilly, and they did not know they were going to dress up as each other.
The fact that they didn't plan it is insane.
No, it was just one of those things, and they've got a remarkable chemistry. And that kind of, we're talking about Tarasenko. I mean, there's a discussion that needs to be had about where do you put Tarasenko. Because you have one line that has an established unit in O'Reilly and Perron, and then you have another line with an established unit in Schenn and Schwartz. So do you put Tarasenko with them, or do you put Tarasenko with O'Reilly and Perron? That's going to be an interesting question, and we'll probably see that answer here hopefully
that
soon.
Is some scary combinations, though.
It is. It really is. Yeah. I think historically Tarasenko has played a lot more with Schenn and Schwartz, so I would probably guess that would be where he goes. I don't know, Wags. What do you think?
I agree 100%. I think having Blais up there with O'Reilly and Perron is a great combination. Blais able to use his body just like a backer circuit Chuck was able to, and give those guys the ability and the room to work. And you said, Tarasenko has worked more with Schwartz and Schenn than really anybody else. And to be able to kind of come back and have that chemistry and that familiarity is going to be beneficial for him, because it's going to take a couple games for him to really get back into game speed. Yes, has been able to skate, and that's super imperative.
The good thing,
you got to have the game speed.
The good thing for him is so is everybody.
That's true as well.
True.
He won't be jumping on the train that's going full speed like normal, because everybody else is dealing with the same thing right now.
Yeah, a little training camp will do everybody good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? I mean, how long do you think it's going to take for these players? Say we have a little bit of a regular season and then playoffs, and I don't know what shape the playoffs is going to take. I've heard execs want best of fives until the finals, and then a best of seven. But I mean, how long do you think it's going to take for these players to kind of get back into game speed?
Well, if you ask our coach, he says a week or two. I think he's crazy.
Wishful thinking, I think.
He's crazy. Yeah. I'd say a 2-week training camp and probably 2 weeks of games. Probably you're going to see probably full speed ahead. But again, it's not going to be the same, because it's not going to be mid-season form, I don't think.
That's the interesting thing about it is, like, as much as, I would love to see them have some kind of finish to the regular season, but I just don't see it happening really. Like, I don't know if timelines are going to line up, and as much as I want that to happen, I just don't think it will. But
Timelines
it's gonna
just purely getting teams to play each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's one thing to line up series to play in the centralized locations. It's another team to, like,
would be a nightmare.
okay, you guys need to play St. Louis, Dallas, so-and-so, 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 and then we'll play playoffs. Like that,
Yeah.
because that just means more flying, right? It's way more logistical hell to have a finish to the regular season than it is just to jump into playoffs.
That's why I think it would be so weird just to jump right into the playoffs after not playing hockey.
Yeah.
It kind of excites me because I want to see like how players are going to respond to that. Like who's actually going to be in shape, who's going to have those legs, because you know that some players will,
and
like, guaranteed.
Just like any playoff run, somebody's going to be the Ryan O'Reilly guy that just puts his team on his back and goes nuts right from the beginning of playoffs, whether or not he's got games to play beforehand or not, right? So it could just be, it'll be literally anyone.
Yeah, like Tyson Jost or something.
Yeah.
Who's been working out somehow harder than everybody.
Yeah, Tyson Jost, who
comes
couldn't
in.
score for like 25 games.
Yeah.
He's just going to somehow go off.
You never know, right? Like it would be super interesting to see how players respond to that.
Well, and how many finals victories have been built on legit superstars? I mean, they're going to get their points, but it's always the unsung guys. It's always the third line players that are the ones that are making the plays. Most of those overtime, double overtime, triple overtime game-winning goals aren't scored by the superstars.
Yeah.
They're scored by the grinders. Pat Maroon, come on.
Exactly.
Jay Beagle, a couple
Yeah.
years ago
Yeah.
for Washington. I mean,
It's because
Wilson.
yeah, exactly. That's because all the superstars have been playing, Yeah, I agree. But yeah, you get like, the Tarasenkos, the McKinnons who, once you get fourth, fifth period of hockey, they've played half a game ice time, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, you never know. And that's when those guys sneak in, like, a Tyson Jost or a Jay Beagle.
And it's playoffs, so it's your top two lines cancel each other out, and it's the depth scoring that always seems to win games regardless.
Colton Parayko, that's going to be our guy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, in a game 7, scenario in the playoffs, when and say it's like back to double overtime again, which would really kick in my PTSD over the Dallas series. I would have I would almost expect like a Mackenzie McEachern to get the game winning goal over a Tarasenko, just because his legs are going to be far fresher than a Tarasenko who would have played probably about half the game.
Maybe Justin Falk changes Tom's mind.
Oh man, then we go into like an alternate timeline, an alternate universe, like Back to the Future. And then everything just becomes darkness.
That's it, just off. Like Justin Falk scores a game winner, and the lights just turn off in the building. Game over. The world just explodes.
Pretty much.
We thought the Blues winning the Stanley Cup was the reason why we had this going on.
That's
if
fair.
Justin Falk scores a game-winning goal, what's going to happen?
All froze over.
We saw a thing in Canada a few weeks ago. It's actually the Raptors' fault. Every time a Toronto sports team wins, the season gets canceled.
Right.
Or like the next year's championship gets canceled. It happened with the Blue Jays and stuff. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Oh God.
But anyway, boys,
I
that
love
was
superstitions.
that was a blast. That was a hell of an interview,
Yeah.
and hell of a chat we had. Again, thanks a ton to the boys from the Blue Notes Pod. Check them out on Twitter. Also, we haven't really mentioned it much. The Goon Line Gaming series on the Hockey Podcast Network.
Oh yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend that started the whole thing is Tom. So it's moved to Saturdays, I believe. They're uploading every Saturday now. It's a blast. It's really fun to watch. They play an EASHL game with a full squad against another full squad and a couple other guys like the Hockey Troll, who was on a few weeks ago for us
or whatever. Yeah.
He commentates with, actually I believe Grant also commentates.
Yeah, he does the like in between kind of, you know what I mean?
The color.
Yeah,
Nice.
and like the sponsors and stuff, the intermission
Nice.
breakdown kind of.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
good. And then who's the other guy? The guy from Broadway Boys.
Yeah, Rangers. I can't remember his name. We haven't
remember
talked to him
either.
yet. Maybe we
Yeah.
should get him on as a guest one of these days.
Yeah. I mean,
No shortage
nothing but
of
time.
guests for us. It's just how do we keep it relevant? That's
Yeah.
the question. But yeah, again, next week we'll have another guest. But As of right now, it's undecided. Maybe the man that we've all been waiting for, Spencer, gets on finally, gets his poop in a group. I think that may be who we're talking to, but don't hold your breath for that either. Just like John Scott, it's not confirmed. But yeah, thanks for tuning in this week, and we will see you next Monday. The biggest thing you can do to support us is by going to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and giving us a 5-star rating. Also, if you're looking to donate to the network, visit the Hockey Podcast Network's Patreon page. All donations go straight to the podcast host. Thanks, and see you next episode.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network on Twitter @HockeyPodNet. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.